powerful stuff. The fact that you're here, we are together collectively changing the world. So thank you for that. Now, I want to start with asking the question of why is it that like one person gets in a car accident? Usually two people get in that car accident. Why is it that one person ends up with an illness that is life-threatening? One of the risks that we face when we first get into this philosophy, when we start learning about the power of our thoughts, that we are co-creating this reality, is we can get hung up in the idea that if something, and I'm going to use like air quotes, something bad happens to me, that it's somehow I created it. So that's the risk, is that we can end up assigning blame or feelings of guilt because we just kind of get the surface level idea of this philosophy that we are creating our reality. And that's a little bit of a dangerous thing. I want to point out how we talk about everything is created in mind, but referencing that when we talk about mind, we're talking about the mind, that there is only one mind, and we are all just little pinpoints of that consciousness. So I think, a great example of showing how we don't individually create these things consciously in our lives. One example is later tonight, there's going to be a football game, and there's 50 plus players on each team. And I can pretty much guarantee they have all been putting lots of conscious thought into this game. They're all visualizing, they're already seeing themselves at Disneyland, celebrating and living the high life. But at the end of tonight, for half of those players, they're not going to have that result that they desired. So is it the quarterback maybe that was not holding on to the image, that wasn't holding the right thoughts? Was it the whole team that somehow held something in their consciousness that prevented them from winning? Or maybe it was that one guy that's had season tickets in Cincinnati for the last 30 years, and he remembered to wear his lucky socks today. So he single-handedly is going to win it for the Cincinnati Bengals. So we could see, I'm using this as just a pointing out that it's complicated. We are all that one mind, all interacting. And so it would behoove us to not place blame and like that much weight on us when these things show up in our life. And that's another point too, when I say, when I use the air quotes, when something shows up that's undesirable in our life, we have our limited human experience. We are here for a very small portion of that one mind, but we are that one mind, and it's all essential to understand the infinite nature. But sometimes, like, even those things that show up that are really challenging for us can be exactly the thing that we needed at this point in our life. One of my favorite quotes from a movie is, I believe it was from Evan Almighty, which is the second in the series that started with Bruce Almighty. And Evan is having a hard time. He's the character of the modern day Noah. And he is asking God, like, I just want to give up. I can't do this. And why is this happening to me? And God, Morgan Freeman, says, well, if you ask God, to be more patient, does God just grant you patience? Or does God give you opportunities to be patient? And so we never know the full picture of what's showing up in our life. So when we say pause and find the cause, it's a great opportunity. I want to make sure that we don't use it as a moment to feel guilt, or maybe even to like put guilt on somebody else. We can see that when somebody is getting excited about this philosophy and the power that we're learning that we really have for creating our reality, and then somebody else comes to them and says something that happened in their life, and in our newfound knowledge, we're quick to say, oh, well, that probably happened because somehow you're thinking negative thoughts. And we pretty much then have alienated that person, assigned guilt, where that's not a helpful thing. And it's not that simple. So this opportunity, I'm not throwing out the whole baby with the bathwater, because here, when we come up with the moment is challenging, it's like a reminder bell. When we have a challenge in our life, this is the opportunity to pause and go within. So when we say pause, very much like Jean's meditation today, we're just quieting the mind, taking a moment, taking some deep breaths, let them out very slowly, and just shift our state of being. It's a subtle thing, but very easy to do. And then we can ask ourselves, what is the cause? What is it that this might be bringing to my life? And this is, again, not in a way to find blame, but it is a powerful tool to recognize when we do this, something quite often comes up right away, of something that we were maybe holding on to too tightly, or an anger or a fear. And just using that as a way to not assign blame, but to recognize where our thoughts could use a tune-up. We certainly know that the power of our thought is creating our reality. And this is, scientifically demonstrated. We use this concept in cognitive behavioral therapy. People and therapists, positive psychology has absolutely demonstrated that the mindset that we have, the way that we look at the events in our lives moving forward, shift how we then show up in the world, which absolutely shifts the way that the world shows up for us. So this is a powerful thing. So pausing, finding, opening up and listening to that still small voice, we can receive some guidance that helps us move forward in a way that is more beneficial. Now, that pause, the pause is a powerful gift. And so in the beginning, like using that, the times of challenge, I use those air quotes again, in our lives, is a perfect reminder. And as we go on in life, we can start to remember more often, using those pauses when things are going great, and finding out, what is going on, what in my mind is contributing to the existence, to the experience that I'm having right now. It's a very powerful thing. Now, that pause as the gift. One of my favorite teachers, who I know we talk about a lot because he just recently made his transition, Thich Nhat Hanh. I love how these talks happen. This idea of pause and find the cause came up about a day after this guidance for me on my personal journey came into me. The guidance was to remember to go within more frequently, to connect with that. And it showed up in 3 ways in the matter of 2 days. And whenever that happens, I know that it's absolutely that one mind showing me, like, Chris, this is your work to do right now. And so Thich Nhat Hanh, amid his passing, I deeply admire his teachings. I share a birthday with Thich Nhat Hanh, and so I feel a strong affinity towards him. But when he made the passing, I decided, I'm going to watch something. I pulled up one on YouTube, the one that, was first in the thing in my feed. And so I listened to it, and he was talking about the power of going within, the power of this pause, and how important, like, every time that we remember just to do that, to just take a breath, close our eyes, and connect, remind ourselves of that connection, that we're bringing a little bit of that spirit back with us. So we're like living kind of like in this hybrid world, which I related a lot to this world of the COVID and hybrid, spiritual services that we're doing now, and how an opportunity this is. So we are creating this hybrid world. We get in this physical world and we do. We're running around, getting all our ducks in a row all the time. But we're spiritual beings. And this is a spiritual world, even though, it's very solid and I could knock on it. It is spirit manifest. This is the body of that infinite, whatever you want to call it. But we get so caught up in the day-to-day. And some people can't even get past the day-to-day. If you can't see, hear, feel, taste, or touch it, it doesn't exist to many people. Now, I'm guessing and going to make the assumption that everybody here is sensing and to some degree or another, that yes, absolutely, there is something more. And this is an important and essential part of our being. So every time that we remember to pause, to connect to that thing, we bring something back with us from that spirit. And when we pause, we're taking something from this into that spirit too, creating that constant meld and meshing. And so that is a powerful thing for what we are going through on this planet right now. I want to stress, the importance that we hold as spiritual visionaries, as people creating a new way of being on this planet. We talk a lot about this shift in consciousness that has been occurring, but seems to be exponentially speeding up, shifting into a new way of being human beings, a new way of living that recognizes that we are stronger together, that recognizes that we have infinite abundance if we can learn how to work together in order to share and benefit from the opulence of which we are part of in this creative universe. So every time that we remember to go into that place and bring back some of that spirit with us, we come back a changed person. So that pause to go in and find the cause is a powerful tool and a powerful opportunity. And it's in these little things that this shift happens. Another kind of like risk that I was talking about at the beginning, when you start to learn like a little bit of this information, like just enough to be dangerous, part of it, we talk about the idea of critical mass in consciousness. When we reach a place where enough individualized pinpoints of consciousness, us people, are remembering and bringing in that spirit on a continual basis to hold the highest vision for ourselves and for each other, that when we reach enough of those people on this planet, then we make the tilting point to where we let go of the old ways of control by the few for the benefit of the few, the old ways that seek to benefit those that are in power. We make that shift into that. And so we'll hit this critical mass, and all of a sudden we all wake up and we're all living in this dream. The risk is that we stand here and kind of just watch from the sidelines saying, I can't wait till this happens, until we hit this critical mass. And then everything's just, magical, beautiful, heaven on earth for all. But we can't just sit on the sidelines and wait for the critical mass, because we are the critical mass. We are the ones that, the fact that you're here, that you're listening to this today points to that you are absolutely part of the shift that is happening. So that's a powerful thing that we hold here. So one thing to keep in mind and to remember as we're looking at this world, there's a lot going on, and I don't want us to dwell in it right now, because it's very easy to get sucked in and to dwell into the stress, the fears, anticipations of all the stuff that's going on around the world, which I absolutely believe is a part of this shift transpiring, that we're seeing the old ways break down. And just like when we do our own individual spiritual personal growth work, the same thing happens. Parts of our old way of being come to the surface, and they manifest in ways that sometimes are very uncomfortable, very unpleasant, but it manifests in a way that we can then acknowledge it and do the work to let it go away. Because spirit doesn't let us slide by holding on to the things that don't serve us. And it's the same way on the macro scale of humanity. We're not going to be able to let the things that don't serve us just kind of still be lying underneath. Like, they have to come to the surface and see it. And that can be very challenging. I'll use the air quotes again. It feels bad, and it's easy to get sucked into. So one thing of psychological importance is the idea of the negative is so much more powerful in our psyches than the positive. I've seen it as a ratio of 3 to 1. The Gottmans, they do a lot of work around relationships, and something that they use to actually predict whether a relationship will make it the long haul or not. And they use the ratio of 3 to 1. And the idea is that the negative thoughts, the things that cause us fear, hold so much weight because it goes back in evolution to those of us, the people that survived. They were the ones that were watching for the things that could kill them. And so those things that bring us danger and fear, like really get our attention, and they really like ruminate and sit with us. And it's, in order to help us survive. So as the Gottmans and other positive psychology thinkers notice that the weight of those negative things on us are so heavy that it takes 3 of the positive things to counterbalance it. And so this is a reminder again to us. We pause and find that cause when things are going wrong. And then reminding ourselves that we have to balance it. So when we open up our news app on our phone and we see something in the news that is causing fear and worry, I understand we need to be informed, but we hold power for our own individual collect state of consciousness, which goes into the entire consciousness of humanity when I'm talking about this critical mass. So we have more power than we might think. Like, how many people are walking around in fear that unless you're sitting at a desk in the Oval Office and communicating with the world leader on the opposite side of the country, like, we don't have much in this physical world, much control whatsoever. Yet we get into it to where our adrenaline, our cortisol is released in our bodies. And it's not healthy. That's what we carry with us. So without putting our heads in the sand, we still have a power and a responsibility of countering what we take in and what we hold. So when we take in that scary information, take a moment and pause and bring in other thoughts. One is to bring in a thought that's 180 degrees opposite of it. There's power in that. And there's also risk, because for some people, trying to think of the opposite of what you don't want to see, you're still holding that thing that you don't want to see in the back of your mind. So you're still letting that energy. So another tool around that, if we're not able to get to that place, is to just simply think of 3 different things that you really enjoy. Maybe it's somebody you love. Maybe it's an animal. Maybe it's a tree in your yard. Maybe it's your favorite snack. Just allow yourself to go into a place in your mind where you experience briefly something that can shift your energy into that higher vibration, into that higher state. I'll use one example from myself when I first got into new thought thinking and realizing like how much thought and power we have. And what happened is I was in our backyard and there was an empty pot that I turned upside down, and I found a black widow spider in the pot. And I'd never seen one, in the wild anywhere before that. And, it's an amazing, beautiful creature, but I don't want to get bit by one, dangerous. And so I was in my 3rd class. This was in Denver. Reverend Raz Smith was my teacher. And what happened is I became very fearful that I couldn't stop obsessing about it. And I was like, oh man, I keep thinking about black widow spiders and not wanting them to be in my house, that I'm now afraid I'm going to create an infestation of black widow spiders because this thought just keeps coming up, and I'm very fearful about it. It was so much so that I had to raise my hand, in class in front of 60 other people and ask Reverend Raz, what do I do about this? And his answer was absolutely perfect. He's like, you can only hold one thought in your mind at a time. So when you have that thought about attracting black widows into your experience, change your thought. And it was, it certainly helped. And it's something that I still recall now when I find myself in that place of ruminating. So the very last part that I want to make sure that we move into, I want to tweak the title of this talk from Pause and Find the Cause to pause and be the cause. What is it that we want to see in this world? What do we want to shift into? So every time, like Thich Nhat Hanh says, like Gene in the meditation brought us, into that place of going within and being in that spiritual realm. I mean, we are always in that spiritual realm because there's nothing outside of it, but we're not always in the experience of being in that spiritual realm. Our awareness isn't there. So every time that we go within and bring some of that back, we can implant as well some of us from this, some of our experience from this world and some of our future experience of this world into that place. So, when Mahatma Gandhi talked about be the change in the world that you wish to see, we have to picture and visualize what change it is that we would like to see. So pause and be the cause. And like I say at the beginning, when we first start this practice, we use the reminder of when something is challenging us, that's the perfect time to go within and ask, what's ours to learn from, what's to grow, and then to plant those seeds of what we would like to experience. And even asking that higher self, what is Spirit's highest vision for myself? What is it that I want to visualize? And the more we do this practice, and again, I'm preaching to myself here right now. When this message came up, it came to me 3 different ways, reminding me to do this continually. To constantly, throughout the days, take a little deep breath. I've been working part-time in a deli, in a grocery store, just to kind of augment our home income. And it's bringing me these opportunities where every time I have to make a sandwich and put it in the toaster and turn it on for 30 minutes or 30 seconds, I'm able to print out the label, get that done, be ready, and I still have 15 seconds to pause. And that's a moment that I can't do anything else. So what a perfect time to just stand, take a deep breath, notice the sensations in my body, and then visualize what's going on around me. Picture the waves of infinite spirit that's coming through me, just ruminating out and connecting with everyone constantly. And it brings me into this place to where I enjoy my work. I enjoy what I'm doing there. And the more we are doing that, it's creating that hybrid world of spirit and this physical. And through that, this is how we really shift the energy on this planet.